Hello, Red Now Energy listeners. This is Mikhail, and I am super excited for our guest today. Jenna is an entrepreneur, public speaker, author, podcast host, real estate investor, and self-love advocate. Her book, I Love Me More, has become a pillar of hope and inspiration for women worldwide as she offers tangible tools and strategies to truly learn how to operate from a space of loving yourself more. Welcome, Jenna.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on your show. Excited to be here and to have this
Oh my
conversation
gosh.
with you.
Yes, of course. I'm actually currently in the process of reading your book, and I have enjoyed it so much. It is so relatable. Everything I read, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm reading my own thoughts right now, or we all, I think, can relate so much. So your book alone is so incredibly important. And then the work you've done beyond that and speaking and spreading the message and giving people very tangible ways to start applying some of these principles to their life is just really remarkable. So I'm very excited to dive in.
Thank you. I feel really blessed and grateful to get to do this work and spread this message. It's something that's really needed for women, especially because we've been socially conditioned and programmed to put ourselves last and put everyone else first. So it's really nice to be able to be a beacon of hope and inspiration and helping women especially just learn to love themselves more, not only realize that it's not only okay, but that it benefits like everyone around you when you love yourself more.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is so imperative to find that self-love and understand it as the very first step. And then everything we do that operates beyond that is from such a deeper place of authenticity and truth versus often when we're just giving love so much and not really putting that compass arrow back toward ourselves. It may even be manipulative or as an attempt to control other people or to receive something from them. But when we operate from this standpoint of like, oh, wait, I love me first. I don't need you to love me in order for me to love me, or I don't need you to choose me in order for me to choose me. I think it's just such a different foundation to start from.
Very well said. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would love to kind of jump in and learn a little bit more about your path to get here. I think that's the most relatable part is you weren't just straight out of the womb, I love me more, and I can just teach everybody else. I think often we have to kind of go to some of the lower depths to then reach the heights that we get to. So share a little bit about your story and kind of the catalyst for writing this book.
You are absolutely right. I came from like the lowest of low, like self-loathing, no sense of self-worth, a self-sacrificer, people pleaser, all the stuff that I still find myself working on to this day. But thankfully, it comes so much more naturally to me now. But yeah, no, I was raised to look to everyone else for my sense of worth and value. And I had a pretty traumatic childhood. I talk about that in the book because I think it's really important to share our stories because, like you mentioned, being relatable, I'm so surprised to see how many people relate to this. I was raised in a very strict religious home. Spare the rod, spoil the child was real, but it was taken to the extreme under the excuse, in my opinion, of being in the Bible. And so I just felt oppressed. I was fearful of my parents. I didn't feel love or loved from them. And so I ended up wanting to leave home and left home at the age of 14. I moved in with my mother for a brief amount of time, but that was like extreme to the other side. A lot of psychological abuse and neglect, and basically would cry myself to sleep every night. I ended up emotionally numb because at some point I was a very sensitive child. At some point you numb, I guess, just to survive. And which led me to, leaving her home at a very, I was 16 and then became suicidal at 17 again, because I was numb. I couldn't feel a thing. And I had no value or worth if nobody loved me. And all I dealt with was emotional pain and physical pain from those who were supposed to love me. It was tough, and I just didn't want to live anymore. So I had multiple suicide attempts, ended up in the hospital in a coma for like a week. Thankfully, I survived that. And then I ended up getting pregnant and married at 19.
Wow.
Thank goodness for my son. He really did save my life, gave me someone else to really pour my energy into. But then, I ended up a divorced single mom at 22. And that's when I really started I ended up stabilizing. I think that was really important. I did not have a stable childhood at all. But as an adult, I gave myself stability. And I have to say, God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, really looked out for me and gave me a stable place to live in Santa Monica, California, which is not a bad place to be. But then I started on my spiritual path, my real spiritual path, which included a lot of introspection and tuning into myself. And I really didn't have any guidance at the time other than just following my own self-inquiry, and read a lot of books and did yoga and stuff like that, and ended up really tuning into myself. And I talk about that a lot in the book, about tuning into your energy and your intuition and learning to trust it. I started trusting my instincts and intuition, listening to them, and really just paying attention to that. A lot of self-reflection, and started really, focusing on building my career, did really well in management and corporate, started my own business and eventually sold that, and yada, yada, yada. Now I've had, a couple of great businesses under my belt, bought and sold some great investment properties, and really found that through my journey of going from, raised super poor, no sense of self-worth or value, to realizing that putting myself first, my needs first, my happiness first, choosing to walk away from toxic relationships, say goodbye to those, whether they are related to you or not, and jobs that weren't serving me. All the times I just chose myself, put my happiness first, and put my needs first, rather than relying on somebody else to do it for me, really showed me that that was the way to go, because I was happier, more at peace, more vibrant. I attracted more of the good things to me, and I lived in more contentment and peace and happiness. And eventually, every day, Mikhail, for me is just a blessing. It's a gift. I see the miracle of life every day. I'm just happy to be here and happy to be alive and experience this amazing world, despite even all the stuff that's going on. You and I were talking earlier about the fires and the global warming and all the things. Even with all of that, there's just so much happiness and joy to be found in every single day. But the key is, it's found within. It's found by choosing yourself and making your happiness and your needs your highest priority, in my opinion.
Amazing. And what a stark, incredible difference, and kind of a pillar of hope for people, no matter where they find themselves listening, that from somebody that was once at a point of saying, there is no point, there's no purpose to life, it doesn't make sense, no one loves me, to then be able to say, even when there's so much chaos going on in the world, I am happy, I am at peace, I am loved, and I'm excited about life. I think that it's so important for us to remember that we're not ever just one thing. And even in your exact moment now, having all this gratitude and excitement for life, there will still be moments in the future where you'll be invited to go back into those old patterns, or you'll experience great loss or pain or rejection or whatever it may be. But now the tools in your tool belt help you say, and I'm still grateful, and I'm still loved, and I still have hope for tomorrow, which is such a gift when you know the alternative and you've experienced that really, really deep feeling of darkness.
Yeah, definitely. I've been at the darkest of days, really. Again, I wanted to die. Like, I literally had a death wish. And it's just so clear to me even now, just that feeling that I felt back then. It's just, life was not worth living. And I went through that for quite a spell, because I had multiple times I just was like, I'm done. And to be at the place where I am now, I'm just so grateful that I didn't go through that. It didn't happen. God had bigger plans for me, and I feel like I was supposed to go through all that to get to the other side and be able to be that beacon of hope for others. And I didn't, a lot of people through the pandemic started realizing, oh, I need to know what my purpose is, right? A lot of us did introspection and got more spiritually connected. And I, for the longest time, really was looking for my purpose, and happened to fall upon it through what I write in the book. And in the opening of it, I talk about, meeting a friend for dinner shortly after I broke up with someone I was really in love with. And she's like, well, why would you break up with someone you're still in love with? I don't get it. And I'm like, well, because I love me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she did not understand. And it took me the whole evening to try to explain to her what that means, because I didn't even think about it at that point. I had gone through my whole life's journey, getting to that point where I could choose myself and my happiness and not even think twice about that. But she couldn't understand. And I just couldn't understand how she couldn't understand.
Right.
And then eventually she gets it. And she's like, wow, this is so powerful. I love me more. I'm talking about it with my friends. And I was like, she's like, can it be helpful to understand how you got there? And her simple question of asking that led me to what I feel was my purpose and the purpose of going through all of this, because it got me to implore and figure out, oh, how did I get here? And can I break that down for others so that they can get there too, but hopefully not the hard way like I did.
Right. Yeah, have a little bit more of a blueprint. And it's so damaging societally that we have it ingrained within us. Why does it even matter if you love yourself, if someone else is loving you, if someone else is choosing you? It doesn't even matter. Like, you've reached the ultimate goal, which as a woman, it's like a man has chosen you. A man is telling you he loves you. Yeah. And so to kind of question that narrative, you do get the deer in the headlights look back sometimes, where people that are, and it's even from the book, it sounds like she then had her own reconciliation internally and realized, wait, I'm where Jenna just was. I'm in this space of feeling underappreciated and maybe not super seen and heard in this relationship. And so it can be a catalyst for big change, which some people aren't quite ready to maybe see. But once you can see that other side of the coin, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize, it matters so much how you feel about yourself, and that you're operating from this space of, I don't need you to love me and choose me. I love me and choose me. And it's amazing when other people in the world are like, you're great, I want to love you and choose you too. But it's not the entirety of what my life operates off of. And so I think that it's just this really simple idea, but very difficult and nuanced and complex to actually grasp and understand.
Totally. And you know what? Well, first off, I love that you mentioned that. It's so important to be whole on your own. And that was a place I had to come to, is like, I had to always look for this relationship to be my other half, right? To fill a need within me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was always looking for that person, and that person was me. Like, I needed to find me and accept me fully, flaws and all, forgive myself for past mistakes, get rid of shame, like let all that go, like just love me, all the parts of me, the dark, the light, everything, And I could totally be on my own. In fact, when I met my fiance a few years ago, I really thought, I will spend the rest of my life alone, happily so. In fact, in order to invite anyone into my space, they really have to bring something special, because I'm way too content and happy on my own. And I think that's when you do attract the right kind of person for you. And thankfully, he had done his own inner work and got to that same place too. So we were both two whole people who didn't need anyone, coming together. And so not relying on anyone for your happiness, and being in that place to get, like, in a couple, it's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And something I don't think a lot of people really consider or have awareness to. And so sometimes it does take some of those wrong relationships and getting out of them and repeating those patterns and saying to yourself, how am I here again? How is the same thing happening again? To almost get to that point where you're like, I've just had it. I'm done. I'm not even going to try. And then that's when the wholeness comes in, so that somebody can step forward that's like, hey, I'm also whole. I've also worked on myself. I also don't need you to complete me or to, fill some of the wounds that trauma has created. And then you get to have the whole next level of relational healing that can happen when, those wounds are still going to come up. But I think that you navigate them a lot differently when you're both in a place of wholeness. And I would like to backtrack a little bit. Like, let's talk about Dave. Let's unpack that a bit and explain to listeners kind of where you had detoured in relationships in the past, what that felt like to be in those relationships. And then finally, when that kind of aha moment happened where you decided that you love yourself more, that has now led you to the wonderful partnership you're in today.
Oh my gosh, that relationship with Dave was crazy. The universe brings us relationships and patterns, right? And a lot of times we'll find ourselves in the same pattern, and that is because you have a lesson to learn. And you're going to keep getting those same relationship patterns and the same types of people until you learn the lesson. And Dave was my big learning lesson, because I was absolutely in a pattern of relationships, but he brought out even that pattern even more to the extreme.
Right.
And it forced me to take a look at my own trauma and my own wounding that I wasn't even aware was attracting those kinds of relationships. And that's when you really get to heal. But man, this is the man I said I love me more with, and broke up with him, and, had that whole conversation with my friend, but I ended up getting back with him.
Okay. And I would say from your book, I think it's important to note in those relationships, even when they're great tests of something maybe that we don't want, your relationship with Dave still looked to your friends like the pillar of the relationship, the romance, the
totally
passion, all of those things. And so I think that's the most difficult part, is it's not always all bad. In fact, often it doesn't even really look bad on the outside. There's something intuitively that feels not so good and not so safe and not so healthy about it. And that can be the most difficult thing to wrestle with, because I've been there. I've had friends that are like, don't mess this one up. You got a good one. He seems like a great guy. And I'm like, why do I feel so unsettled? Why in the middle of the night when my eyes open up to go to the bathroom, I go, what am I doing? I need to get out of this life. Like, what is that feeling that's inside of me when everyone around me is like, you guys are so cute and you look so great together? I think it's important to note that sometimes it's way more of a feeling than the appearance of it.
Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, because we had that's why my friend was questioning why I would break up with him. She's like, I don't understand. You guys seem amazing together. He is the best I've ever seen him. She knew him before she knew me. And so it was, from the outside perspective, it just seemed like we had the best relationship. People wanted to model their relationship after us. They're like, it's so exciting. They have so much fun together. Yeah. So from the outside world, it looked amazing. Internally, what would happen is I just felt like things were off, and I definitely wasn't getting what I needed. And I would voice it in many different ways, but I would fall into this self-sacrificing pattern. It was just old childhood wounding that I wasn't aware of. And so I would self-sacrifice because I loved him so much. And I want to get back to this idea of loving him so much in a second, because now I realize what that was. But I would bend over backwards, but then I would deplete myself and then look to him to fill me up, to make me happy, to give me love in return. And when I didn't get it when I needed it, I would then fall into this wounding pattern, right? Then it's like this abandonment issue would come up for me. And it was just so toxic for those reasons, right? It just wasn't bringing out the best in me. And, the first time I broke up with him, he was like, okay, bye-bye. And finally, when I pulled the trigger again, the second and last time, it was, okay, bye-bye. Same thing, like zero emotion, no concern or care. And reminds me of a pattern from my past.
Right. Yeah. It's like in those moments, especially of being really heightened, you can often say, like, who from my past, often a caregiver, does this remind me of? And what is this inner child within me needing and seeking? And again, when we can give ourselves that safety and security and stability and tell ourselves, that inner child within us, we're good, I've got you, we're safe now. We don't need someone else to be our mommy and our daddy and protect us. There's such a different place again that we operate from, but we often try to subconsciously heal those wounds from our parents, from our deeper, you know, childhood woundings in romantic partners that are not able to meet us there and heal those wounds. And it sounds like so much of your relationship, the ability to be whole within it was how much you could do for him. And you get this like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You've helped me so much. But there's no space for you. There's no space for you to have a feeling, a need. Hey, maybe could you just, you know, give me a call to talk about this? And nope, I'm too busy. You know, it's so interesting, like, to pause and realize there's no space for you in this relationship where you've created this person on center stage in your life and you're not even in the background.
Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. You totally nailed it. But, you know, I also want to say, so I want to get back to what I pointed out earlier about loving him so much. When I broke up with him, and I was the one to break up both times, I felt this huge hole in my heart. And it was so hard. Honestly, Michaela, it felt like I was going through withdrawals. I've never been on heroin or anything like that. But
you are, though, in those moments. Yeah, all your chemicals are truly experiencing withdrawal from this chemical that this person and this relationship created within you.
Yeah, it was like an addiction, an attachment. And so I had to do research and find out, oh my God. So that love or whatever attachment, dopamine release, what was happening in my brain in that relationship literally triggers the same stuff that happens with drug addicts. It's no different. And so it releases that same oxytocin, dopamine. And so when you don't get that anymore, yeah, you are going through withdrawals. So and your mind wants to play tricks on you, just like I would imagine people who use have to deal with.
You'll do anything to get it. And that's where the self-abandonment comes in, is eventually you're like, you used to give me $100 bills. Now you're rolling me pennies, but I'll accept the pennies because, like, I will do anything to get this fix. And that's too where I think the toxicity even spirals, is like, it's hard looking back on it. And there's like, you're invited for shame of, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I was willing to give of myself to get like a crumb from this person, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're going into way more details than I even get into in the book, because he is like, you're reading my story from the inside. And so just researching that, again, gave me really good intel to put into the book, because I was like, I want to share this with anyone who might be going through a similar thing, because I really felt like it was love. I'm thinking, my God, this is my person. Okay. I feel like there's this hole in my heart. So maybe there's some work I need to do on me to make this all okay and whatever. But no, my instincts were correct. This was just an addiction, and it was so bad for me and toxic for me. What really helped me stay on path was what I read about in the book, was this relationship coaching I got. I didn't go for long, but it really was huge for me. And they have you write down your relationship values, your top ones. You know, you go through and you have this huge sheet of values. You circle the ones that are the most important to you, and then you pick your top 3 or 5 or whatever. When I went through and rated how well he met those values for me on a scale of 1 to 10, he was like 1 to 3 on my top values.
And that was probably on a good day.
Exactly. So I was like, what am I doing? This is not my person. Like, what, this feeling of quote unquote love that was depleting me, draining me, toxic for me, wasn't love. It was addiction. And there was nothing in there. He would never, ever, ever be able to meet my needs in a relationship, ever. So
you were the best part of that relationship. And when you're operating from wanting the love of someone else, it's really hard to see that. But it's almost kind of comical to now ask, like, maybe I'm seeing somebody casually and I'm like, do I really like them, or do I just really like me? Am I the funny one? Am I carrying this? What am I bringing to this? And then it's like, what a thought that I'm not the best part of this relationship. There's also somebody else that's equally bringing something, so that together we're the best part of the relationship, versus like, I could be in a relationship with anyone and overgive and meet their needs and be hyper vigilant. And if they sigh a little extra hard, I'm like, something must be wrong. How can I fix this? And I'm just not interested in that anymore. And I'm not interested in being the most interesting and best part of a relationship. I want somebody else to bring something to the table as well. And often when we do look back at those patterns where those people are maybe 1, 2, or 3 on a scale of 10 to being able to meet our needs, we recognize if I flip the script and go through it, I'm a 10, I'm a 12 out of 10 for how I can meet this need. And so it's like, what would happen if we operated from making sure that we're only moving forward in partnership with people that are on the high end of those values? And again, easier said than done, because it's often those people that can't meet our needs that are the most addictive. And that it's almost like, but if I can trick them into choosing me, that means I'm actually finally worthy. And that person is never going to choose anyone in the capacity that we would need. But it's like this like messed up attempt at being like, I'll finally be worthy. And it's just like, no, we've got it all wrong. We are worthy.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother conversation about women in general. I mean, we should never be the chaser, just an attractor, and that's it. It's being in the feminine, is something that I had to work hard at, especially coming from survival mode. I was in survival mode for so long. It puts you in your masculine. And so for me to be able to just be in my feminine is a really nice experience. And my partner to feel like he can be in his masculine, and us, be that balance for each other in that way. It's a really great feeling. But yeah, no more chasing. I only attract. That's
Yes.
it.
And what now in partnership, I guess, if you could take us back to maybe dating in between a little bit from, ending things with Dave until your partnership now, how did that look different? What did you change about your approach? And then what was it about your current partner that was different and filled you up enough to consider, getting engaged and actually moving into a partnership with somebody again?
Yeah, it's a big deal. I never thought I'd get married again. Like I said, I got married at 19, divorced at 22. I was like, I do not need marriage. So it took a special person to change my mind. But can I just share with you this? Okay, so I started dating again, and after the breakup and all of that, and I went through some dating situations that were fine, but the universe, God, would still send me people who looked similar, in a similar vein. And what was interesting is it was almost like a test. I'm very spiritual, and I believe that God brings us, is like, are you healed?
Mhm.
Are you sure you're healed? And these people were triggering old, it was like the same old comfortable pattern, right? You're like, oh, okay, I get this person, whatever. And I had to right away, I would look at, like, after a few dates, like, okay, they're waiting for 2 days to respond to a text message, or, those little things. And I'm like, nope, done. Like, I don't even want to entertain this. This isn't, if that's the way you treat someone in a courting situation, then this is just not what I'm looking for. Or like sexually, for example, there are different ways in which you can be tested, and it's like, no, this is not what I'm looking for. No, and so when I gave the universe a hard no, because I was like, this is those old patterns. No, that is when I got this amazing man that came my way. And then that was a definite yes for that. Now, they talk about this a lot in like trauma books and stuff like that, where when someone isn't exciting, when you're not feeling those butterflies, and it's not just that crazy excitement, that it seems boring. But that is, that is your nervous system being calm and feeling safe. And so I went for that this time. I invested into that more than I would have perhaps in the past. And I won't say that it wasn't a rocky start. I'll put it out there that he did cross a couple of boundaries early on. I'd say like a month into our relationship, and I was very hopeful. We had a really great beginning, some really amazing dates. I thought, this one, might be the one that I could invest some time into. And then he crossed my boundary, and then I said it very clearly, this is a boundary of mine. And he crossed it again, not thinking twice about it. It's like he didn't hear what I said at all. And I was like, oh, now granted, it was his birthday and we had a date plan. And I bought him a plant. He was really into plants at the time, his special plant thing. And I was kind of like, all right, obligated to go on a date with him, thankfully, because I didn't want to let him down. It was his birthday and all that. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is probably the last time I'll see him. And but he knew it. He could tell energetically that something, like, I was not happy, or that I was distant, And so right away we sat down at dinner and he tells me, you know what? I really messed up. You set a boundary and I totally steamrolled it. I am so sorry. You know what? I will take you seriously from here on out. This is something that obviously I need to work on. Yeah. And then he really just put it all out there and really paid attention to that. And I thought, wow, here's somebody who cares to make a go at this relationship that I mean enough to him at this point to try harder. And so I gave him the second chance and everything was amazing ever since. Like he's been just an amazing person. But I will give it to him, there's tall white man privilege is a real thing. And I pointed that out very clearly to him. He's had a lot of, being a tall, good-looking white man, a lot of privilege in his life, and they don't really have to often think about the way that they affect others, including women, and especially in the South, how they treat women, not in a bad way, but just like things they take for granted. Like, well, of course, when I say something, everyone follows, and of course,
there's those specific outcomes, and so when something challenges that a little bit, it's kind of, I'm sure, destabilizing a bit for him, but then in a way probably brought a whole other wave of gratitude and like, okay, I don't want to just steamroll my partner. That's not the point.
Yeah.
And I think to your point back in regards to some of the other people you dated that looked similar, maybe in ways to other partners you'd had, something I've started doing so much more of is not even focusing as much on how I feel when I'm with them. Like if it's interesting enough that I want another date or I'm interested in getting to know them, that's great. That's all I need to know. I ask myself, how do I feel when I'm not with them?
Yeah.
Because I think that can tell you a lot more. Am I checking my phone every 5 seconds? Am I sending a message and knowing there's going to be a game in, they'll respond in an hour and then I'll wait for an hour and 1 minute. And then, it's just like, if I start feeling like that, I'm automatically out of my feminine. I'm automatically out of receiving and I'm trying to control and wield and do. And there is no feeling in person that is so good, it's worth not feeling good when you're away from them. Totally. No feeling. The problem is it's often those partnerships that are really toxic or have those patterns that feel so good and addictive when you are with them that you're willing to tolerate some of the confusion, some of the chaos, some of the games when you're not. But I'm so interested in feeling regulated and calm in someone's presence for sure. But then especially when we're not, like having that trust and that boring feeling you talked about, that's the goal at the end of the day. I think about my friends' partnerships that have, lasted a long time and been through things. And it's nice. No news is good news. They don't sit around the brunch table and complain and say these things. It's like, it's just calm and stable and good. And there's happiness and some highs and lows, but there's such a smaller wavelength than those big highs and lows that we often experience in those kind of more addictive partnerships.
I have to say that, yes, to everything you just said, so well said, that, I'd always imagined that there was this person out there for me that was just like a great guy, all the great qualities I was looking for, that we'd have a great partnership together because I feel like I bring so much to the table. And I really had envisioned this person. And then I let all that go when I healed and all of that, and come to find out that person was out there. And so it's like, we need to it's okay to even just be like, look, I'm not even going to go through that. I'm going to learn from Jenna. I'm going to learn from Mikhail, and I'm not going to put myself out there and date these toads, unless I am getting exactly what makes me feel great in a relationship, where I am feeling safe and secure, and I'm not feeling confused, and I'm not wondering what's happening moment to moment, and I'm not feeling like these high highs and these low lows, and it's just feeling bad and whatever. If you can just wait and say, you know what, I'm just going to be alone. Like, I would have probably been better off just being alone, honestly, and waiting for that right person, or just never finding that person at all. Because, it's, again, you're going to keep getting those same lessons over and over again until you learn to say no.
Right.
And that's what I had to do. I had to do a hard no. But, and this might sound mean, but I would actually just block someone at that point. If they made me feel bad because of just not showing me attention's not the right word, but respect.
Yeah. And intention maybe too, like they're being intentional about their communication and their interactions with you, and
Yes.
respecting absolutely your time and energy and effort as well.
Then it's just, it was like, we're dating. I have no obligation to you. Block. That block for me was a sign to me. I had nothing to do with them. I wasn't trying to do anything to them. It's like no, I am not doing this. This is not what I want. I don't even have to give this person the time of day. If you're going to treat me like that, I don't need to even be nice to you or be courteous, and someone could hear that and say, well, that sounds mean. They didn't do it. No, I don't owe anyone anything. There's a really good book out called You Don't Owe Anyone. And it is so true. You owe no one anything.
Well, you've operated previously from overgiving and self-sacrificing. You almost have to go to that end of being willing to prove to yourself that you can just cut somebody out of your life like that. Otherwise, the people that are sitting there saying it's mean, it's like, what's more mean is to myself when I date that person for 2 years. Like that's worse. And that causes a lot more issues. And so you're also signaling to the universe, I'm done repeating this pattern.
Yes.
My heart is open for somebody that is going to respect me. And once you set some of those boundaries, you sort of ascend, and then the caliber of people that are in your orbit are very different than when you're down in this one spiral of all these same wolves in sheep's clothing, that just are repeating some of those same patterns.
I got chills again. You got it. That's it. And that's why I want to talk about that story of blocking people, because it was only when I was willing to do that, which was outside of my normal pattern, it felt so good to me to do that, which is, again, what tells you you're on the right path is when what you're doing feels good to you. That was all I needed to know. And that's what I had to do with Dave. I had to block all contact. I had to block him on phone. And just because any little text from him during that time that I was healing would send these hopes and what ifs, and maybe he's come around and all this stuff. And that didn't do me any favors. And so it would feel good to block him. And so that's what I did. It did it for me. And that's how you know you're on the right path. And so again, once I was willing to do that and block through the dating, I think it told the universe, it was a very clear boundary. Do not send these people my way anymore. I'm not tolerating
it anymore. And then I actually love the fact that you were invited to set a boundary a couple of times, and your current partner, wasn't in a place of fully it wasn't like you met and everything was just so incredibly perfect and whatever. I think that that's a good signal too, that he's not perfect, thank goodness, because then you don't have to be perfect. And you were willing to have the conversation and feel safe enough to set the boundary. And of course, if he was never willing to respect the boundary, we wouldn't be sitting where we are right now in your current partnership. But I think that sometimes when we start setting boundaries, we do kind of become that hammer. And it's like anyone that crosses us, we're like, you're out, you're out, you're out. And I think it doesn't give a lot of room for grace and for us to say, okay, there's actually is a middle ground. And you speak about that in your book. Like, you may fling to one side so heavily, but then eventually you come to a middle place of balance. You don't have to be the self-sabotaging, people-pleasing, self-abandonment person, but you also don't have to walk around the world cutting everyone out if they just look at you wrong or whatever, because people are imperfect and they are going to cross our boundaries. And so the biggest thing is being willing to have those conversations and then enforce ending the relationship or ending the interaction if they're unwilling to acknowledge the boundary there, I think is the biggest part.
I love that you brought that up and pointed that out. You're absolutely right. You don't want to go from one extreme to the other. That's not going to feel good to you either, which is not self-love, right? You want to do what makes you feel good, and being kind and nice and generous to other people feels good. But also, that is where self-love comes in, because if you can give yourself compassion, if you can give yourself forgiveness, if you can give yourself that kindness, you can extend the same to others, because we can only give what we're willing to give to ourselves as well. So, when I see people being angry at other people and just their ideology is so attached to their belief that they want to hate on other people for their beliefs or whatever, to me, it's because they haven't forgiven something in themselves, or they're not accepting something within themselves.
way. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So setting boundaries is super, super, super important, but you can do it with kindness and compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like keep that boundary firm within yourself first and foremost, which might mean ending the thing with the shiny person, this like shiny carrot that's dangled in front of you and is a test in some way. And the more that you're willing to kind of do that, I think the more the universe does say, all right, she's really serious about this. Let's try a new caliber of person and see what happens. And then I'd love for you to speak a little bit on what that trigger looks like, because I imagine in its whole own way, being in a healthier, communicative, healed partnership invites you to one, this is boring, I need something to shake this up, I'm used to chaos. But then two, holy cow, I'm actually seen by this person. I'm allowed to have needs. I'm not just performing, where I think so often we get really good at doing the song and dance, but no one actually sees the wounding in us. Or if they do, it's that resentful slamming the cupboards, but they're never going to actually meet us where we need them to. So I'd love to hear what that next phase of relationship has looked like for you with, healing and working through some of these things.
It's just so easy. It's like
Love
there's
that.
no drama, no fighting ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, we watch a lot of reality TV at night because it's on me. He was actually a classic movie watcher. Like, that's pretty much what he watched before he met me. But now he got sucked into the reality world because I like to turn off my brain at night and let other people have the drama, not me. But wait, why was I talking? Now here's where age comes in. I think I was forgetting why I was going down that path. But so maybe just watching other people's drama is the drama because we just don't have any of our own.
Yeah,
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, they constantly say on reality TV, like, you got to fight for it. You got to fight for the relationship. I hear it all the time, Mikhail, and I don't get that.
No.
I don't get that. Yeah, you might have to fight for it if it's a toxic relationship with a lot of unhealed trauma and and a lack of self-awareness and personal development and growth and stuff like that. But if you've both invested in yourself and your personal growth and your personal development, and then that shouldn't exist, and that is perfectly normal as well. We'd never fight. And if we do have something to talk about, if there's a concern, then it's like, hey, can we talk?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no putting someone on the defensive or coming at someone. Again, delivering with kindness and compassion and respect, right? Because I respect him as a human being. He doesn't have to be in my life, and I don't have to be in his life. We choose to be here. I don't own him. He doesn't own me.
Mm-hmm.
And that, therefore, if we always treat each other with that type of respect, there's no obligation. You're not, even if when we get married, there
Mm-hmm.
won't be an obligation. Like, now I can treat him like crap. He's dealt with enough of that. I've dealt with enough of that.
Yeah.
And so for us to treat each other with kindness and compassion this is where our life is. I mean, he lives in this amazing place of gratitude. And I guess my only complaint is I hear how grateful he is all the time. And it gets a little like, okay, every day I'm so, I'm so grateful to have you in my life. If that's my biggest complaint, that he says that all the time, then
Totally.
you know what I mean? So that's the space we're in. And we're just so aligned in our values, right? I defined my values. I went through that process. He did the same. So we are totally aligned in our values. And that just makes it just so easy, know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I love that. And I mean, thank goodness former partners didn't fight for the relationship. You spoke about ending the relationship with Dave twice and him saying, okay, all right, and had he fought and really shown up and tried to do the whole thing, maybe there'd be 3, 4, 5 times you had to end the relationship.
That's right.
But we'd still likely be here where he wasn't the partner you were supposed to be with.
Totally.
And so there is that. If you're sitting there being like, I want this person to fight for me, maybe get honest with yourself about why. What are the deeper reasons that you're not being met and seen? Because fighting for you once and doing a grand gesture and writing you the letter, or standing outside your house in the pouring rain with the boombox on their shoulder, that's not going to make a partnership for the rest of life. That's one moment that you felt fought for, but then what? Like, then what happens next? I think it's very rarely a catalyst where there's deep work done to meet you in the future, where you need to be. So
yeah, I just feeling like someone, like, I don't need anyone to take care of me as far as like financially goes, I've always been financially independent, but he shows me time and time again that he will be there for me no matter what. Again, being in his masculine and making me feel safe, to be in my feminine, it feels good. I never really had that. So that was really like a big thing that I needed that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's this, I want to also say, it's not like he's this macho, masculine, manly man. Actually, not at all. He's he's very in touch with his feminine. He's in the creative world and very balanced on both sides. And I would say I am too, right? I am in touch with my masculine. I love being in business and leading. I'm a great leader. I'm a natural leader. That is your masculine, but in a partnership with him, I am in my feminine. And that's where I feel balanced in this partnership. And it feels really good to have that. So I want to focus more on that going forward. I might even write a book on that. And I am exploring that in a fiction series that I'm writing with a partner about the masculine and the feminine, because I think not enough of us are aware of what that means and how it really understanding the nuances of that and how we have both within us, but what it means as a woman to be in your feminine in a partnership, I think that is huge.
Absolutely. And it's difficult because while it might sound easy in theory to talk about, you're unpatterning things from the moment you were born and from the first experiences you had in love and intimacy and relationships. And so behaving differently moving forward is difficult. It's not just something you can read the one book or flip the switch and all of a sudden it's completely different. And so I think it's a continuous practice and understanding. And again, coming from self-love and really deeply knowing and understanding yourself, that then those behaviors can be invited to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to make sure that we cover, some of the aspects of self-love for anyone listening who hasn't maybe explored this subject like I hadn't. I had to learn it on my own. I never read a book on it. I'd never even learned of the term self-love until I started researching for my book. I didn't know there was a term for it. But if you don't mind, Mikkel, I'd just like to talk about that for a second.
Yes, I'd love to. I have your 6 kind of principles written down. I'd really, really encourage and invite anybody listening to get Jenna's book, I Love Me More. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes in order to order it. But I would love to dive in and kind of go through some of those principles. And, you speak in the book on how easy it is for people to define self-love. Oh, it's that you love yourself. But what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like? Kind of unpacking and uncovering some of that even deeper.
Yeah. So thank you for asking. So a lot of people mix up self-care with self-love, I found. And so I just kind of want to give you my insights as to what the differences are. I haven't read this anywhere, but this is what I've noticed and observed. Self-care is, like going and taking a hot bubble bath, like reading a book, right? Journaling. I love journaling. Taking a walk on a nice sunny day, listening to music. These are things that, lift your spirits, make you feel good. I love getting a foot massage when I get a pedicure. That's self-care. I treat myself. Those are things vacations, those are treating yourself. And self-care is so, so important, but it is not the same as self-love. So I like to think of self-care as external, meaning outside your body. It's things that happen outside of you. Self-love is more internal to me. It's the things that are inside of you. It's that self-respect, self-compassion, letting go of shame, owning your whole story, which I talk about in the book, even those shameful stories. I talk about having only a GED as an education, and I felt a lot of shame around that, especially being a business leader and hiring, and having people work for me who have, bachelor's and master's and sometimes PhDs. I was ashamed. I hid from it. Those are stories that, or any kind of story that you hide from. Self-love is accepting those shameful stories and accepting it. You don't have to love that story, but you accept it and it's part of your journey. And, loving yourself is loving all of you, loving your whole journey. We're not perfect. We weren't made to be perfect. And so yeah, that self-forgiveness, that self-respect, setting those boundaries, tuning into your intuition, and trusting it 100%. These are all feelings inside of you. And so that really is the difference between self-love and self-care to me. Both are essential, but totally different.
Yeah. And I think self-care is often a lot of light experiences, like all these things that are very shiny and happy and great, and treat yourself, as you said. And I think with self-love, you have to accept the dark aspect of it as well. And that is internal. It's exposing to yourself. Like you said, you don't have to love it. Some people do choose to go speak about it very publicly or share it very publicly, because there is often more acceptance in going, I'm not just going to keep this a secret that I have to trudge forward with, but even just personally sharing it and letting it be part of your story, and not trying so hard to put it in a box somewhere else, because often then subconsciously so many of our decisions are being made from trying to keep that part of us still hidden. But often it's like exposing all of it, letting it all be there, allowing it to all be there, loving ourselves in spite of some of the things that maybe we've experienced or gone through. And it's like this exposing and uncovering almost. And it's so liberating, because you don't then have to be hiding from your own self, which is where I think a lot of people externally seek so much more. How can I distract? How can I have this person show me they love me and choose me? But really, when you're like, man, when I just let it all be there, there's not much I have to run from any longer.
Totally. Oh my goodness, you just nailed it. Yes. Also, some people have really, I mean, I've had traumatic stories, but and my suicide, was one that I never talked about, never.
Yeah.
So imagine putting it out in a book. I had to I accept that part of me, but I usually don't talk to people about that, because it's just not like you put yourself out there like that. And it's not really, it doesn't define me today, although it is part of my story. But it's just like, why talk about it? So, but I've crossed paths with people, and I've known people and know people who've had horrific backgrounds, childhood molestation and things like that, and who have not talked about it, who don't own the story, and it comes out in their lives in all these messed up ways. And until they are able to talk about it, and maybe in their own, just their inner circle, close inner circle, or even use that pain and that story and then heal from that, and then share that with the world, that changes their lives. I've seen that happen too, where there's one person in particular who she did that, and she wrote about it and all of that, and it just changed her life dramatically. She stopped being an alcoholic. She stopped attracting certain relationships. She's just much more vibrant and peaceful and happy, because carrying that burden around, it creates this darkness in your life that has to come out, and it comes out in other ways. So until you heal it, it's going to affect your life in negative ways typically. So just starting to own those parts of our story. I think Brene Brown talks about it as well. And it's huge, but it does come into the whole self-love theme as well. Again, accepting all the parts of you. And so, I just felt it was really important to talk about that. Reach whomever it might need to reach. You never know what part of your story is going to connect with someone and help trigger that inner introspection.
Yeah. And I think in the moment that we expose something that we've been running from or hiding from for so long, again, that pendulum thing happens again. We get flung all the way out of balance to the other side. I mean, I opened up in my mid-20s about being sexually abused for the first 6 years of my life. And at that moment, it was like, this is now the only thing about me, because I had hid it for so long. It felt liberating to share, but then it was like center stage of my life. And now, close to a decade later, I almost can nonchalantly say, oh yeah, well, I was sexually abused when I was little, without realizing that that's not so normalized for other people to hear, because it truly feels like such a small part of my story now. And I don't own it. I don't have to carry it. I'm not responsible for it. I don't have to protect the people that harmed me. And often I think that's another thing when we hide part of our story. And especially, you know, if we've had childhood trauma or things with our parents, it can be difficult to speak out against that. And we don't maybe want to hurt their feelings or this or that. And I think that we end up spending our lives trying to protect everybody but ourselves, if that's where we're operating from. But I can say, you know, no matter what caliber of secret or shame anyone is carrying on the scale of childhood sexual abuse, or something that it's like, oh my gosh, I could never say this out loud. I used to shake, my teeth would chatter, I would feel such a visceral response, and I would still like whisper it or allude to it, and I couldn't actually say it. And so now to have it be this thing that I'm like, not to minimize what happened, but to my life now, it is not a big deal. It is not something that I'm trying to protect or that I'm trying to hide or anything like that. And so it's so nice to go, oh my gosh, how much energy would have been wasted if I spent the last 10 years trying to keep that buried and hidden and be shameful for it. It would have been such wasted energy that I've been able to put so many other places now. So I couldn't echo and agree more with what you're sharing in that, and how big that is in a self-love journey, is accepting those things and loving yourself in spite of those things.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you had been through that as well. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge and amazing that you are on the other side of that and can talk about it as you do today. Like, oh yeah, this happened. That
Right.
is so huge.
Yes. And empowering in my shoes to just say like, oh, it's really, I used to worry so much about other people's reaction to what I was even going to say too. And now it's so, I don't have to worry about that, nor do I have to have an expectation of like, how are they going to show up for me in this? Is it going to make me want to be more silenced or more? I'm just like, oh no, this is just part of it. It's so cool, calm, collected, fine. Like it's not a big deal. And of course, never minimizing what anyone has gone through in their childhood or in an experience that is traumatic. It's just so liberating and freeing to be in a place now as an adult where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a thing that happened. And of course I want to be a lighthouse for people that maybe are at a different place in their journey and that feel like I could never get there because I felt the exact same way. But it's so empowering to be like, man, I dropped that backpack a long time ago. I don't have to carry that with me any longer. And it feels so nice. The mountains I can climb now without this weight, you know, that I'm just carrying around.
So I talk a lot in the book about power, and I don't know if you could relate to that at all, but that's what I'm talking about. What happens is you give your power away to this shameful story. We're giving so much. It's like that power that was taken from us at that time, like in your case, like, you know, that power that was taken from you, you keep giving your power to it the more that you don't own the story and hide from it and keep recreate, you know, the victim side of it versus taking the other side, which is owning the story. When you own it, I feel like you can take your power back. And holding our own power, I think, is so important. I say your love is your power. We can give our power to all these things outside of ourselves or circumstances or things that happen, but you're just training yourself. When we can be in our power, we can be our best selves, and loving ourselves, putting our positive love and attention on ourselves powers us up like a battery. And when we are energized and powerful, we can make a bigger impact in the world. Our light shines brighter. Our vibrations go up. We can shine brighter and do more good in the world. So we not only owe it to ourselves, but we do the entire world a huge favor when we take our power back and we shine as bright as we can.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And it just then becomes this domino effect in our lives. And it feels so nice to be able to operate from that space versus the exact opposite in this low vibration, which again, then that's all we're attracting. That's all we're seeing. And so some of these small changes can allow us to just ascend in these amazing ways. And our lives really can change at the speed in which we believe they can. I think that that's the thing too. Timelines are so non-existent when you are in a space of just allowing and receiving and believing and trusting versus wielding and forcing and counting the days, like all these things. I think it's so beautiful to get to that space of like unclenching your fists and then allowing yourself to receive, but also really pouring back into yourself first and foremost.
Amazing. I love it so much. I recently learned that the highest vibration there is, I thought most of us think is love, but it's actually authenticity. And just being our authentic self. We can truly be that when we forgive ourselves, when we let go of the shameful stories, when we love ourselves for everything that we are or aren't. We can love ourselves for how we are and who we are today. That just vibrates authenticity, and it just raises up your vibrations. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And to that point, the whole energy kind of zones and figuring out where they vibrate. And it is a scientific, like a real vibration, but authenticity being the highest. And then the line between being high vibe and low vibe is courage. And so I think that's also so remarkable because it's not this emotion you really have to channel or harness, or like you said, it's not love or power or something you might think is going to be that middle line. It's simply courage in saying, I'm straddling this line. I could dip low or I could go a little bit higher. Am I brave enough to do so? Do I have the courage to just maybe try something different, to change the channel in my brain when I'm invited to this negative self-talk, to block the person that I'm having a feeling within me that I don't even have to explain to anyone in the world about why or anything. I know deeply that there is something there, and say, I'm going to be trustworthy and respectful to myself and make this decision. All those things are just simply courage and saying, like, I'm going to change the outcome this time and not keep repeating this low vibe kind of decision.
Yes, and yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what are some things that listeners could actually do that are kind of tangible? I know, we've moved really kind of breezed through quickly 1 through 5 and kind of touched on some of those components, which again, I would really recommend anybody actually dive in and read your whole book. But your last piece, which I just love, is kind of a game plan, actually having something to move forward with, knowing that you can reclaim those values and then step forward, loving yourself more in every setting. We've spoken about a few of them, but what are some things that you could leave listeners with that they could do?
Yeah. So I would say, well, I talk about grounding yourself in your power at the end, right? And so adopting some kind of an emblem or a symbol, I think is really important. I have my ring that I talk about in the book. I don't ever take this off unless I'm playing tennis. This is just a ring that I brought to commit to myself. I wear it on my right hand, and that is my commitment to myself. Like, I will always look out for my needs and my happiness, and I think that's really important. You could get a tattoo, you could have a object in your home or something like that. But really, ultimately, it's just to, like, I think you covered it so well, which is, if you need to block someone, block them. Like, if you need to, say no to something, like you don't want to go to a party or whatever, say no. If there's a job that you thought looked great on paper, but you have a really bad feeling when you go into the interview, don't take that job. Trust yourself is really the key, because inside, at first, when you're not used to trusting that, it feels strange. It doesn't make logical sense usually at all. But that is, I can't tell you how many times I do things that don't make logical sense because my intuition is so strong. If you can learn to develop that relationship with your inner wisdom, that is key, but it takes practice. Grab that umbrella as you're going out the door. If you have this little voice that says grab an umbrella, even if your weather app doesn't say rain, just do it. Just start trusting yourself, and you will see that you know what's best for you. That is a really good place to start.
Yeah, and trusting yourself is often being brave enough to just be in your body, to have those little thoughts come through. And as you said, grab the umbrella, or maybe you're being urged a little bit to like take the back roads instead of the highway to work that day. And it might not be because you're going to miss this catastrophic accident. It might be that your intuition is telling you, I just need a little bit more peace and slowness about my day. So I don't think it has to always be like, oh my gosh, my intuition is saving me from death day in and day out.
Right. Yeah.
My intuition is inviting me to be in my body. My intuition is inviting me to be safe at home with myself. And so all those little tiny pings and kind of intuitive thoughts or little guides that we have are often really just encouraging us to be safe in our body, to be able to be really regulated on our own. And then again, it changes anytime then we have that like, ooh, that interview or that, even in this new endeavor I'm doing, there are people I will have really great kind of like, I don't know what you call initial screener, meet and greet calls with, whatever, really great. Like we have a lot of the same ideas and these different things. And there's just something that I'm like, it just feels a little disconnected or misaligned. And that means nothing bad about that person. It might just mean it's not the right timing for this episode or this conversation to happen. And so much of me, every time that thought crosses my mind, wants to revert back to like, but this might hurt their feelings and again, protect them, protect everyone else around me, when really it's not even like, not only do I not owe anyone anything, they also don't owe me anything. And so at the end of the day, like that's also a beautiful place to operate from, where it's like, we're all doing our best. We're all, just humans floating on this rock trying to figure it out. And so at the end of the day, take the pressure off of yourself to worry so much about everyone else and maybe worry for a second about yourself first.
Yes. Yes. Start with a second and then hopefully get to a point where you realize that, oh man, if I stop putting all my energy and focus on everyone else and put it on myself, that is just a much better place. It's not being selfish. Of course, you want to have concern and care for others, but everyone's got their own stuff going on. It's not your job to fix everyone or make sure everyone's okay. Everyone needs to be okay on their own. You have to make sure you first are looking out for yourself, because God gave us this vessel and we are to be taking care of it, right? The temple is here. This is our temple. And so we need to make sure that we're looking out for this temple, number one, and then you can look out for everyone else. But when you do, you will be able to look out for so much more than you would have been able to. But it's got to come here first, then it goes there.
And just from, again, that authenticity place, which is another great reminder if people are facing different situations or decisions or anything like that, but to quiet the noise around you, to sit down and kind of come home to yourself. Maybe you journal, maybe it's just an inward thought, but ask yourself, like, what would feel the most authentic in this decision? And sometimes it does go against the grain of what everyone in the world or the friend across from you at dinner that's going, are you crazy? You guys look like you have it all. And it's like, but if there is something within you that is whispering even, this is not the right thing, the more we get used to ignoring those whispers, the louder they often have to become. And that does look like inflammation and chronic pain and disease and these different things within our body that will sit there and tell us over and over and over again until we're finally ready to listen. And I think I've heard over and over again, if you're not willing to say no, your body will say no for you. And so you have to kind of recognize these areas, or, maybe people that you leave. Again, nothing even has to be so vastly wrong with the interaction, but you might leave and go, man, every time I leave, I just don't feel fully right, or I don't feel like the most authentic version of myself. And so listening to those when they're just a whisper spares us from having to wait until it is screaming at us in order for us to pay attention.
Absolutely. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, amazing. Anything else come to mind that people could do or practices you've learned over the years? I'm going to do that for myself and encourage anyone to find some like little piece of jewelry or a reminder that is somewhere with you each day, but that in those moments, and I'm sure you even found yourself, all right, you're doing the hard thing, you're setting the boundary, you're spinning that ring, you're physically able to be like, it's right here. And it's such a reminder to me, like, I'm not abandoning myself. I'm not gonna keep repeating, history again.
Yeah, because we make vows to others when we get married, you make this commitment, but it's almost like it'd be good to just do a commitment ceremony with this thing that you get for yourself, right? To like make that commitment so that, yes, every time you look at it, you have that reminder. But I love that you mentioned getting quiet. I also talk about this journaling. Journaling has been such a huge way for me to connect with myself every single day. So if you're not into meditating or getting quiet, you get restless, Journaling is just amazing. And I love just free flowing with it. You're not writing a book. It's not being edited. You just connect with yourself, write about whatever comes to mind. You would be surprised as to what comes out. You'll never not have something to write about, but the more you write, the more you're going to start processing stuff that you didn't know was there or that you needed to think about. I get inspired all the time when I start journaling. I'll start getting ideas and inspiration. That's how you connect with you, God, the universe,
Mhm.
that connection time. So whether you're praying, meditating, journaling, you get that connection time with you and God, universe, all the,
Yeah.
however you want to call it. And that's huge as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend that.
I love that. Just an intentionally creating space for independent thought, for the world to be quieted. We live in such a fast-paced society and we're always intaking so much that even just saying, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but 30 minutes every day, I'm going to sit down, I'll have a journal, I'll have a meditation. I could just sit quietly and let my ideas come to me. I think is so it's remarkable because when we don't make space for that, we often don't have a minute in our day that is not filled with something else. And so I just think it's a really beautiful practice to be intentional about.
Yeah, getting quiet is how you let God speak to you, or you can, however you want to connect.
Mhm.
But you can't hear that
Right.
wisdom. You can't get that if you don't get quiet or connect with yourself.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's super important.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear what your personal version of red nail energy is. So just whether it's external, an outfit, something that you put on, the way you do your hair, or if it's internal, more of like a mantra or something that you'll tell yourself, but that has really made a difference for you in taking up space and really loving yourself first.
I love this whole red nail energy thing. I think it is awesome. um, I have, I got very lucky and established my confidence pretty early on in life. So that was something that I just, um, for me, it's just like I get on stage, for example, right? Or I lead people all the time now. I'm doing event moderating and facilitating and speaking. And so, just getting out there and just realizing that I have something, to share
Mhm.
and that I'm helping others.
Mhm.
It's not, I think ego, it's easy to get wrapped up in ego, but it's like, forget about all of that, like just connect and, when you realize that you've got some value to add for others, but that you're helping people, that it just helps you just be your authentic self. And confidence really, it's huge. Like when you can connect with your confidence, it can take you so many different places. And so I love that you're focusing in on that. I feel like confidence comes from trusting yourself, bravery, as you mentioned, being courageous, being brave enough to do those things that maybe you're scared of, because that might be the thing you're supposed to do. Speaking was something I was most afraid of besides heights. I still have a fear of heights. I don't need to confront that fear, but I did have the courage to confront my fear of speaking. And it turns out I absolutely love it. So, and it doesn't mean I got over it once I got on stage once. No, it just took time and practice for me to go, okay, you get a little jitters in the beginning, but it goes right away. And so just doing the thing that makes you scared and just being brave enough to confront that and not let it have power over you. You might not find that you love it like I did, but you can find that I can navigate, I can do this, I can overcome this. And having that faith in yourself will give you the confidence. So I guess my red nail energy is facing every time something comes up that I'm afraid of, face it and do it. Like whether it's confronting someone, saying that thing, whatever it is, that is me putting on my red nails. Just do it.
And what a change that ends up making in your life, because every single time you chose to do it, you have this whole other experience that you would never had if you just played it safe, played it small. As adults, we're not like playful and silly and curious enough. Oftentimes it's like but I don't want to be the worst one in the room, or I might be bad at that, or I might look dumb. And it's like, man, if I worried about that, the amount of opportunities I would have missed out on. And guess what? I did look dumb. I was the worst in the room sometimes, but the ability I had to then have fun with it and be able to then go, I actually kind of like that. And now maybe I'm one of the best ones in the room because I kept at it versus never having done it to begin with. And what a shame, and how much we end up missing out on if that's the way we operate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I know it's not putting on an outfit or anything, but just being brave and facing those things I'm a little scared of. That's my red nail energy.
Amazing. Yeah. And that right there, it does, once you've done the thing and you're maybe driving home or you're walking off the pickleball court or whatever it is that you've just tried, that feeling of self-accomplishment and having done it is such a beautiful, exciting feeling, and, worth it every single time. Or
and that is,
yeah, you might not love it, and that's okay too. At least you've tried it, and I think it's really hard when people operate from like, I could never. And I'm like, well, you really don't know. And like you said, now somebody could invite you to a speaking engagement and you wouldn't even blink, and it'd be like, yep, absolutely. Where before it's like, I need to gear up for 6 weeks, so.
Yeah, even writing my book, I was like, my limiting belief said I'm not a writer, but it was like, where did that come from? Did I ever try to write a book? No. Yeah. So you just do that thing. And when you learn that, hey, if I do something, at least I know I will give it my best. Like you said, you might not love it, but you might actually love it. And you might just go on this whole different path in your life that you've never even anticipated. So yeah, it's that playful energy, being adventurous. Life is meant to be explored. I like to think of it as a video game, right? If you've ever played a video game, I love being adventurous in video games. It's like, what's over here? Oh, what happens when I touch that magic rabbit? Like, okay, or swallow that pill. You just never know what's going to happen. And, but that's the beauty of this adventure called life. Just take the adventure, go for it.
Yeah, and nobody would play the video game that's just like Groundhog's Day. You do the exact same thing every day. There's no special coins or mushrooms you jump on over here that catapult you to the next dimension or whatever. I think there's so many different things we can experience, and having that playfulness and curiosity and like, well, I guess I just unlocked another level I wasn't expecting to unlock,
Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly. You're not going to unlock those levels if you don't play and go on adventures. Absolutely.
I love that. Oh, well, Jenna, this has been so great. I still have so many questions and would love to even continue this conversation. So we will just have to have you back on. Darn it. So
I would love that so much. And I love everything you're doing with this show and Red Nail Energy. I'm all about it. So yes, feel free to ask me back anytime. I would do so joyfully.
Amazing. I mean, the more conversations I have, even as different as maybe our upbringings or stories or the earlier chapters of our lives are, I just realize over and over again how much more connected and similar we all are. And your book is such a testament to that. As I said, reading it, it's so comforting to be like, man, it's so digestible and tangible, and you're not talking at anybody, you're talking with them and saying like, this is, where I've been and where I'm at. But I think oftentimes it isn't until we've kind of walked those hard paths that we get to the other side and then say, hey, I've learned a lot. Does anyone want to listen? Because we could maybe help each other out, and there's definitely strength in numbers. So
thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Amazing. Well, this has been great. And as always, Red Nail Energy listeners, you are seen and loved and not alone. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Bye.